Hi, I'm Johnnie Burrell. Welcome to the program.
Now, many of you, myself included, remember George Wallace as a staunch segregationist governor who stood in the doorway and tried to block black students from integrating the University of Alabama. Now, I met Peggy, I was with Peggy this year when she returned to the University of Alabama and stood where her father, George Wallace, stood in 1963 and spoke of her experience as a child of the movement, which out of this ugly past has given her a clear voice for change and reconciliation that is resounding throughout the country. Throughout the country. And I just have to share this with you. When I was a student at Mills College, I remember getting, and I mentioned this to Peggy earlier, I remember getting very angry when my mentor, the late, our beloved Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm, went to visit George Wallace in the hospital after he was shot. She stopped her campaigning for the presidency as the first woman, if you remember, and the first African American to run for the United States office of the president. And incidentally, finally, I got my legislation passed. We'll have a Shirley Chisholm postal stamp next year. Finally. Took a while, but we got that done. But let me tell you, I was so angry at Shirley. Now here I was helping lead her campaign, but Shirley Chisholm taught me so many things, including this lesson. She said, you gotta rise above anger and bitterness to display humanity to one's enemies, she said. And you know what? I kept hearing her say, I didn't believe it. But let me tell you, I believe it because I know Peggy Wallace Kennedy. And I tell you, I believe Shirley Chisholm's visit helped open Governor Wallace's eyes to his terrible racism and hostilities towards African Americans. I believe that, and I have to thank Shirley Chisholm for being so bold and daring as to make that visit.
I was 13 years old when my father proclaimed segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever in his inaugural address in January of 1963 after being sworn in as governor of Alabama. Those 6 words would become a permanent commentary on the character of Governor George Wallace and an inescapable burden for his children. On June 11th, 1963, less than 5 months after he became governor, my father journeyed back to his alma mater, the University of Alabama, to stand in the schoolhouse door to prevent the enrollment of 2 African Americans, James Hood and Vivian Malone. It would yet become another defining moment in the character of George Wallace. My memories of June 11th, 1963 were very different from what anyone could imagine. For just as it was a day that changed the lives of Vivian Malone, James Hood, and those that would follow in their footsteps, it changed mine as well, but in a different way.
And right after that, on September 15th, 5 girls went to the bathroom, not 4. My friend Sarah Collins, who is my partner in a movie that we're writing right now, Sarah was 12 years old. Her sister Addie Mae was 14. Their friend Denise McNair was 11. Carol Robinson and Cynthia Wesley, they all went to the bathroom. It was Children's Day. It was the first time the children were ever going to take over the church. They were all wearing white, and they were in the bathroom. They were primping. Sarah went into the stall. Denise said to Addie Mae, will you tie my sash? As she got ready to tie the sash, they heard an explosion, and in came shards of glass. The girls were killed. Sarah was the only one left standing. She said God left her standing for a reason. I just want you to see. There they are. Because they died, that's my friend Sarah who survived. You know, everybody gives the girls and remembers the girls, but nobody remembers my friend Sarah. I want you to remember Sarah. Sarah's sacrifice, and Sarah's a maid today. She lives the reality of the movie The Help. There she is today. She lost one eye, and most of the vision in her other eye, and her forehead is bumpy because shards of glass still line her forehead. That's my dad that night at the church. These are the people that were sleeping in the church, my dad's church, First Baptist Church. You see them on the pews. They were afraid to go outside because the KKK was going to kill them. And then the National Guard that Bobby Kennedy sent in, there they are. Anyway, that's the press conference they had the following morning in my mother's house, and I was a little girl witnessing that. That's John Lewis, Uncle Maude and Daddy, and James Foreman from CORE, the Congress of Racial Equality. And that's, you can see the patch on John Lewis's head from where he was beaten.
My earliest memories are when my father was the Attorney General at the height of the Civil Rights Movement, and my parents really didn't separate their home life from their work life. So my mother would take 6 or 7 of us and a couple of dogs and a football and bring us down to the Justice Department, and we would run around and see my dad. And then our favorite thing to do was to go in the tunnel underneath the Justice Department over to the FBI building to watch the sharpshooters at practice. Now, the head of the FBI at that time was J. Edgar Hoover. And he was a man not known for his love of children or his sense of humor. And now, this is the weird part about this story, which is that in the bottom of the FBI building, there was a suggestion box. How about that? Anyway, one day, my mother took out her telltale red pen and wrote a suggestion, put that into the box. And then as she was gathering up the kids and the football and the dogs and bringing us back to my father's office, which took her a few minutes, a very astute FBI agent went and took that suggestion out of the box and brought it up to J. Edgar Hoover, who read it and then had it immediately sent to Daddy. And so when we were walking back into Daddy's office, he was opening the suggestion, and the suggestion was, get a new director. So
41 years ago, my father made his final public address at the first Civil Rights Symposium in the Presidential Library that bears his name. All who were there will never forget watching a very ill and a very old-looking Lyndon Johnson make his last impassioned plea for civil rights. He was just 64, 2 years younger than I am today. In the middle of his speech, Daddy took a nitroglycerin pill, and I rushed to be near him afterwards. He explained that an angina attack had kept him up all night, and his doctor had admonished him that if he made that speech, he could not guarantee that he'd walk off the stage alive. I asked my father why on earth had he come under those circumstances, and Daddy shook his head in bewilderment that his own child didn't get the obvious lesson, and said, because, my child, if I had died, I would have gone dying for what I lived for. What more could any man want?